Okay, Emmy fans, we've got the editors of Gold Derby lined up here, the smartest kids on the Emmy block, to tell you who's going to be nominated and which shows for drama series and which ones are going to win. We are days away from the nomination, and who wants to set up what the Chris? You do this. Game of Thrones is now tied at 27 wins, so it's tied with Hill Street Blues and West Wing for the biggest winning Emmy series among dramas ever. It won 12 last year. It set a new record for the most wins in a year. But it didn't win until its fifth year. It took some time for it to build. Now has it built so much that it's invincible, Chris?
For drama series, I think it probably is. I mean, especially those last few episodes got as much buzz as anything they've ever done from the fans, and the critics, seem to still be on board. We have to obviously see if the Emmy voters are, but it really feels like a juggernaut at this point. Like it's going to continue to win a lot of technical awards. And I would have never guessed it winning writing last year. When it won writing, you knew, because directing, yes, but writing, boy, that I think it very well has to be the front runner for drama series again.
But when it won for writing last year, let's recall that it only submitted one episode, so it had a better strategy than previous years. It really focused its odds, its chances, and it pulled through. Paul Sheehan, our executive editor. Paul, in the past, when we have seen a hot show win in its first year, I'm thinking of Homeland, for example. The shows, and when Lost is another one. Red hot shows that were really buzzworthy programs, they tended to be full of suspense, and in some cases, like Lost, full of fantasy elements too. And here comes Mr. Robot now, and the wild card with Mr. Robot, not only in the lead category, but in the two acting races, too. Talking best drama actor here for Rami Malek and for Christian Slater in that supporting race. They're airing original episodes during the voting for part two, right, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that could be a factor, certainly in lead actor, but I think even in drama series, I mean, there was a sense last year, like you just mentioned, Homeland and Lost winning in the first year. Most drama series that win their first Emmy, it happens, I think, before season 5. So the fact that Game of Thrones had to wait, and you can make excuses, well, it had this show and that show, and they were overdue. It's just, it'll be interesting to me to see the nomination tally. Just does Game of Thrones sort of break its record for the most nominations? Because I guess what we saw last year was a shift to the popular vote. And so, as Chris just said, you can't argue about the popularity of Game of Thrones. It's exceptionally popular. But voters, when they come to marking their ballots in August, they're going to have another popular show, Mr. Robot, which I think has been brilliantly marketed. There's great buzz around it. And I think one thing, Tom, to talk about is the infiltration of the Oscar consultants into the Emmy races and the number of events that are being staged in Hollywood and in New York and to appeal to Emmy voters. And that's sort of a relatively new phenomenon. And I don't know how much Game of Thrones did on that front, say, versus Mr. Robot and a few of the others.
Well, I know Chris went to 1 million Mr. Robot events. I only know of one Game of Thrones Emmy event. Maybe there were more, but I think I only learned of the one. But if you're HBO and you have Game of Thrones, maybe you don't need to do these Emmy events. I mean, it's the biggest show on TV.
Daniel, it took Breaking Bad to the 5th season to win. Is that right? And then it won twice in a row, didn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it took until and it was a similar situation like Game of Thrones. It started well enough, like Bryan Cranston won the first season, but it kept building and building and building every season until it became a juggernaut, and that's what Game of Thrones has done. And looking at the competition, I do think Mr. Robot is probably its biggest threat. It'll depend on when we see the nominations tally, what key categories Mr. Robot gets into, if it overperforms, if it underperforms. But at this point, it's hard for me to call anything but Game of Thrones a frontrunner.
However, we know that this factor of airing episodes of a buzz hit show during the Emmy voting is important because, Marcus, let's come back to you. Didn't Mad Men do this?
Mad Men did. Breaking Bad did as well. I'm sure there are others, and I'm kind of blanking on those.
Right, but Mad Men did it all 4 years, that it won drama series every single year. It was airing live episodes during phase 2 of the voting over on the comedy side. That was the trick that Sex and the City used. It won in its 3rd season, but season 4 was airing episodes right up to like the week before the voting started, so the show was fresh in their mind. This is a factor that is very, very important. See, where we see, Paul mentioned the Emmy consultants, where we see these consultants be a factor on the campaign side, it tends to be the common wisdom among them and the networks and all of that is air original programming during the nomination phase. That's what the Americans did this year. They moved the show later on the calendar by 2 weeks than it had before, so that it ended in the middle of June this year. Last year, I think it had ended in the middle of May, and so the voting is the last 3 weeks of June for phase 1 for the nominations. So everyone seems to be focused on that. Have your live episodes then. Matter of fact, even on PBS, I noticed Mercy Street, which is a contender on the for miniseries. And what they had done was re-air the episodes, of course. FX, speaking of them again, with the Americans, they did People versus O.J. Simpson. They were re-airing over and over O.J. Simpson on FX Network and FX at night and so forth. And so that's very common. But to do it during phase 2 is not so common. And I think the reason it has to do is that it's late summer, August. It's probably the poorest TV ratings of the year. Why would you, if you have a premium hot show, why would you wait to then to do it? But it does seem to matter if you've got a show that people are paying attention to.
Right, and then you have something like House of Cards, which is a front runner to win, I think. And that aired way back in March, and it aired all at once. And we've talked about this a lot, but I think it's a big factor that no one really talks about a streaming show for the amount of time that we talk about a show like Game of Thrones. I mean, that's 10 weeks of buzz, plus if you have a really good finale, a couple more weeks, tagged on at the end. House of Cards had maybe a month or less of buzz, which I think is a huge factor.
Yes. We saw, by the way, the very first victory by a streaming service ever at the Emmys last year in a top category when Jeffrey Tambor won Best Comedy Actor and Amazon took that category. But speaking of House of Cards, the oddity there is that you remember Netflix got 3 series nominations last year. They got Best Drama Series for Orange is the New Black and for House of Cards, and Kimmy Schmidt was nominated for Comedy Series. 3 series, none of them nominated for writing or directing. It was this very schizophrenic, bizarre breakup of the nominations for those shows. But this year, Netflix sent 20-some pounds of FYC boxes to the Emmys that included 3 different shipments of their DVDs and temporary memberships, and they had parties all over town, of course. Amazon did. So, but I agree with you, Marcus. I think House of Cards, especially that it's an election year, is really poised well. And Daniel, on that.
I want to just jump in. I just want to jump in, Tom, just to explain then the dichotomy. The program nominations, but not in the underlying, the directing, the writing, and that's got to do with who's voting for the nominations, right?
Peer group,
yeah. So it's the peer group. Directors are nominating directors and writers, and then it's opened up to everyone to program. And also, last year I think they expanded how many. I mean, you mentioned this the other day. The TV Academy has exploded. I mean, it was 18,000 members last year. It's 22,000 this year, and all 22,000 can vote, I think, in up to 10 different genre categories, right? Programming categories, something like that. I mean, it's.
I was admitted as a member this year, and I'm a member of the interactive branch because that's what we do here, of course. But I've been a producer of a TV Land series that was on years ago called Top 10. I had originated it, and I had was the executive producer week to week. So I do have a legitimate TV production.
Wait, are you saying this could be nominated for an Emmy? What we're doing right now?
We could
Well,
enter it next year.
sorry. Okay.
We're too cheap to pay the admission, the submission charge. That's the problem. But actually, now that I'm a member, I get a free submission. But anyway,
so I think that's made a bit. That I think explains the discrepancies. The popular vote. I think the Netflix big box, appealing to people. And imagine if you're one of those 4,000 new members and you get that this year. How excited! It's going to be Christmas for all these people, day in and day out. So
there were 50-some FYC separate packages sent to the voters this year. By far a record. It was astounding what happened. Paul mentioned the other business of peer groups. So, only writers can vote for writers and all of that. And actors, casting agents are allowed to vote for actors. They make some exceptions in areas like that. But in my case, since I'm a member of the interactive branch, I can only vote in the program category. So the largest branch, for example, is the TV executives, and they can only vote on program. But you get, 20, 30 different programs to vote for. So it's not just comedy and drama series and TV, movie, and all that, but it's in variety special and all those things. But it goes into, your ballot includes those little, small interactive categories as well. And what you do is you pick 10 nominees. You don't rank them, you just pick 10 out of however many. And that's how they tally it up. But it's a different voting process for winners and nominees, and as Paul mentioned, we have a different voting system now, as evidenced last year, than we did before. Because, as Chris had mentioned, we used to have judges prior to last year, and they were small groups of judges. About 50 to 70 would decide who wins Best Comedy Actor, let's say, and they would be TV Academy members of the acting branch who would promise to watch one episode each of those submissions. Now they claim that they're watching it, but of course they don't have to, and they're no longer limited to 4 categories as they used to be. Now they can vote in all of the acting categories. So the question remains, how much of a popular vote will round 2 reflect, like we thought it did last year? But here we're talking about round 1 for now. Daniel, I'm rambling. Save me here. House of Cards. Let's go back to House of Cards for a second. Is it finally Kevin Spacey's year?
I think so. I sort of have him in first place by default. This is gonna in categories because it's one of those few races where we really count, because John Hamm, who won last year, is gone, and Bryan Cranston, who won 7 times before that, is also not in contention here. So we're gonna see a new winner. And if it does turn up to be more like a popular vote, I mean, Kevin Spacey is the person we just saw win 2 SAG Awards in a row for Best Drama Actor. And SAG Awards. So if it's the same way,
Daniel's camera's freezing here, but also he finally won his first Golden Globe this year too, after having been snubbed over and over and over again before. So, yeah, I think it could benefit him.
I've got Bob Odenkirk winning there. I think certainly Kevin Spacey could win. 2-time Oscar winner. They love their Oscar winners at the Emmys. There's always been that inferiority complex in some ways. That's why when we see an Oscar winner in a category, we often gravitate towards them. But I'm just wondering about Bob Odenkirk. He had a really great year on Better Call Saul. If they are watching episodes, he certainly got a great episode to submit. But he also brought his variety show back with David Cross. So just the wide range of abilities that he showed on TV this year might help him.
No,
I think he's well liked in the industry. I think Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah, and I think that's what we learned with Bryan Cranston, is that the reason he broke through that first year, no one was watching Breaking Bad that first year. It did not get nominated for series, but he got nominated and he won. And of course he won because he had a really great episode. But he was it's like that Catherine Jewston, and it's like
Margot Martindale.
Margot Martindale, Marcus's friend. That that they're just working in the trenches, and they honor that. And Odenkirk certainly is that, right, Marcus?
Yeah, I have him in second place. And if this was based on the old tape system where they have to watch an episode, he could win. But I think Daniel's right. It's going to be popularity. And I think, here's how you're going to win the Emmy prediction contest. Just go with who was nominated last year. And when it comes to the winners, pick who won last year. In this category, we don't have, a winner from last year because John Hamm's gone, Bryan Cranston's gone, even Jeff Daniels is gone. So in that case, go with who won SAG, because that is a popular vote. Kevin Spacey won SAG 2 years in a row, so I think that's the way that these Emmy voters are going to be going.
But Tom, you've got a good theory on Rami. I heard you telling an executive or somebody recently about his type of character and how that type of character and the things that he has to go through often wins Emmys or Oscars or Tonys. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, because he's a psychotic character. He's got Daniel, what would you describe his psychological problem on?
Well, I'd have to consult a psychologist, but he has some sort of dissociative identity thing. The Fight Club disorder, where his identity is sort of split off in two, and then he figures out who he really is in that back end of the season, the last couple of episodes.
It's like Claire Danes won for being a nut job who takes medication of him in Homeland, right? And so he's he's always been told to take his medication on Mr. Robot because he's so bonkers.
The difference is everyone knows who Claire Danes is. Rami Malek, ask 18,000 of those 22,000 voters, they may not even know who this guy is yet.
Well, with season 2 airing, then it will be interesting. Now let's talk about some of the nominations. Here's where we differ among all of us, and that is somebody as smart as Marcus has Liev Schreiber in there, but naysayers like me and Paul don't. And we've got, and some of us have Kyle Chandler, and some of us have I think, is Chris the only one? I'm screwing this up. Who's got both Damian Lewis and Paul Giamatti? No, Daniel does. And this is what I think the big question is. Let's talk about drama actor for a while. We've got Kyle Chandler was nominated last year. Of course, he won for Friday Night Lights. He's a darling of this. But, of course, his bloodline is liked as it was before, or has it been waning? Or does that even matter in a popular vote like this? But Billions is a fascinating wild card. I think it could even be nominated for drama series. This is a show that talk about them loving upscale, like we always talk about them being snobs. You can't get any more snobbish than Billions, a show about these hedge funds. And then you've got two lead characters, and we've seen this in years past. On the drama side, for men, we would see the old NYPD Blue guys both get in there. And then in Sopranos, both Lorraine Bracco and Edie Falco would get nominated. Sometimes co-stars do get nominated in lead. And now, Daniel, you've got both Giamatti and Lewis in there, and Kyle Chandler, but you don't have Liev Schreiber, you don't have some other people. But first, talk about that. Why do you think both of the Billions boys gets in?
I think I'm sort of more confident about Paul Giamatti than Damian Lewis. I feel like Paul Giamatti could submit a test pattern with his name on it and still get nominated for an Emmy. But I sort of have both of them. It's not the highest profile new show of the year, like a Mr. Robot, but it's high enough profile. It has that upscale quality, like you mentioned, and they're also known quantities at the Emmys. They're both Emmy winners. They're both nominated for for multiple projects. Damian Lewis got in for Wolf Hall last year, so we know they didn't just like him in Homeland. And so I feel like they have a high enough profile with voters that. In a year with openings like this year has, with no Jeff Daniels, no John Hamm, and I think Liev Schreiber is definitely on the bubble. He was a surprise to get in last year, so he would be less of a surprise to get in this year. But I think they have the high enough profile to break through.
What do you think, Marcus?
I have Giamatti getting in. If I had 7 slots, I would put Damian Lewis in that 7th slot, but this Liev Schreiber thing is he came out of nowhere to get a nomination for season 2. Remember, he was snubbed for season 1. I didn't even know that the voters were watching the shows. I think he was in 20th place in our predictions last year, and he got in. So I'm not going to drop him just yet. He may be this new Jim Carter person who's going to get in every year, even though there are people that we think have more of a better chance than him. So again, Daniel could be right. It could be both. I don't have enough slots to put them both in, unfortunately.
But isn't that interesting what Marcus just said about Jim Carter from Downton Abbey, the butler, Carson, how once you get, though, on that Emmy treadmill, you can stay on it. Does anyone have Jim Carter being nominated for the final season of Downton Abbey?
Yeah.
Oh, I do. I've learned my lesson.
Yeah, exactly. So it's to your point about Liev Schreiber. It's a tough one because he's or Damian Lewis, who did well with Homeland, and I don't. With Billions, I was surprised how it didn't seem to take hold. That with the subject matter being so timely in the election year, the Wall Street under attack, and I wonder if
why would you say that? Why? What are you basing on the fact that it didn't take hold? It has great buzz. It got very good, solid reviews. They're bringing it back.
I didn't feel like it had great buzz. I mean, I subscribe to something called Feedly, and I see dozens upon dozens of articles on Mr. Robot, on Game of Thrones, every single when they air, and I just don't feel like Billions generated a conversation at least online. In various, different outlets. I mean, I subscribe to a wide range, and they're all talking about Mr. Robot, or they're all talking about Game of Thrones, or they're all talking about House of Cards when it aired. And I just felt like Billions didn't get that kind of attention. I mean, you're right, the reviews were quite good and respectful, and there were some occasional think pieces. I was just surprised, given the subject matter, that it didn't kind of take hold more.
Chris?
Well, if Daniel's right, and I had both of them in this morning, I went through and made a lot of changes this morning, and I wimped out in several cases, and if they were nominated last year in almost every case, I put them back in. Like Liev Schreiber, I put in for Damian Lewis. If Daniel's right, though, and both men get in for lead, I think the show, you will see that the show gets in for drama series. I don't think both men get in there and the show gets snubbed for drama series, especially with 7 slots.
Right. The NYPD Blue example, that show would always get in, but that was back when there were, 4 networks that were competing at the Emmys. But yeah, you could be right.
And only 5 slots, though, for acting.
Mm-hmm.
Even more impressive.
And just to, there is the 2% rule, so there could potentially be, as we saw last year with Comedy Supporting Actress, there were 8 nominees. So if somebody comes within 2% of the last nominee, then they get a nomination as well. So your Kyle Chandlers or maybe Damian Lewis I think we'll be talking about this on Thursday. If there are 7 nominees, it'll be fun to figure out who was the one that was the result of this 2% rule.
Well, in the exact same situation, you've got 2 other well-respected. One of them has won several Emmys, and one from the same show. That's The Path with Aaron Paul and Hugh Dancy. That's a show that had at least as good a buzz as Billions. Aaron Paul's won 3. Hugh Dancy was nominated about a decade ago. So, there's another situation with 2 very strong male leads.
Can we just have 10 nominations next year, Emmys? Can you get this right? TV is so much bigger than it's ever been. And Tom, I know you're a supporter of the 10 nominees every category. I think we need to eventually get there. I
agree. Now, what about the Americans? I know every year we have the same discussion. Oh, is it finally going to get in? It's on the bubble. We've seen Mad Men is now pushed aside. Orange is the New Black isn't as strong as it was the previous years. It was nominated for a drama series last year, but I think it's vulnerable this year. I think it's unwise to take it out of your predictions, but on the other hand, I could see it be bumped out. There are 7 nominees, 7 slots for drama series. And I don't think Kerry Russell has much of a chance of being nominated for acting, but I think that Matthew Rhys, if you watch the show, he has a kind of very deeply conflicted character this year, a lot going on psychologically. I think there's a possibility he could get in. I'm not sure if I'm going to. I have him in my predictions now. I'm not sure I'm going to keep him there. I have to do one last tweaking and editing before Thursday. But what do you guys think? Anybody want to jump in?
You dismissed Kerry Russell. It's interesting because isn't she the one that got nominated by the TV critics? So is that the kiss of death? That if the critics embrace you,
she had her best season ever. I've got her in my predictions, but it's in the 6th sixth slot, and I don't have tons of confidence.
I think that, to your point, though, Tom, it's because she's so cold and so like she's not particularly likable, but she's not devilish. She's not a villain in that sense with the wink to the camera. So anyway, I wanted to leap to Felicity's defense as I say that, of course, I think that's her biggest stumbling block is she's not perceived as an Emmy-worthy actress.
I agree.
Yeah.
So
I will say about the show, I always, I predicted it, I think last year and the year before. I feel like Lucy with the football with Charlie Brown. Just every time I predict it, I miss the ball. So I do have Carrie in. I may take her out, but I don't have it in anywhere else other than Margot Martindale.
Does anybody else have the Americans being nominated? I think it's going to get in.
I thought so.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Yeah, I think The Americans is the best drama series of this season. I think it had its best season ever this season. And I think I'm not predicting it anywhere but Margot, but I feel like there is wiggle room. I feel like drama series, there are 7 slots there. Orange is the New Black didn't get that many nominations overall last year. I think that's vulnerable. Homeland has sort of been, in terms of its Emmy profile, kind of on the downward slope, so that could be vulnerable too. Even Downton Abbey, it's the last season and it's been beloved before, but it's also kind of been downward trending with the Emmys. So, I mean, there to move, and it got the writing nomination last year, which showed that other branches are watching it. Margot Martindale won on what was essentially a popularity vote, so someone, must have been watching something, or at least didn't mind seeing her name attached to The Americans. So there's wiggle room, and I'm really, really hoping it happens. But I'm at kind of a believe it when I see it phase with The Americans.
Yeah. And this whole Orange is the New Black thing, I did not have it in my predictions until about a week ago. I was doing a slugfest with Rob and Charlie and someone named Ralph, and they managed to convince me to put it back in because, at the end of the day, every time the nominations came out, we pound our fists on the table because, oh, of course that show's back in because they always nominate that show, the Jim Carter rule. Orange is the New Black has been nominated every year, whether it's a comedy, whether it's a drama. It was also airing it streamed episodes during the nominations phase. So they managed to convince me to put it in, so I booted out The Americans.
Ooh. And Orange is the New Black streamed the right episodes. I haven't seen season 4 yet, but the buzz for it is so good.
Yeah.
And so much better than the buzz for season 3 was. And season 3 is what they're voting for. So if it was vulnerable for season 3, the fact that it came back with what has been such an amazingly well-received season can only help it in this Emmy cycle. So,
Marcus, our beloved Outlander. As cyber journalist, that all you have to do to get traffic is put Outlander in a headline of anything, and the world explodes because it has so many rabid fans. But not necessarily within the TV Academy, of course. But that was just for first season last year. Sometimes it takes a show to a while to break in. I don't think Sam Heughan gets nominated. I think Tobias in the supporting category is vulnerable because he didn't have much of a season. But I want to hear your view on the possibility for Katrina Balfe for drama actress and Outlander getting into series. Is it possible?
It's the old Will and Grace rule. Will and Grace season 1 got 1 nomination. I think it was directing for James Burrows. Season 2, it came back, something like 11 nominations. It even won Best Comedy Series, and it got all the actors in. So sometimes it takes the voters a year to really catch on. I think they're too busy watching TV they're too busy making TV to actually watch TV. And I mean, look what happened at the Globes. Season 2 of Outlander exploded. Season 1 got completely snubbed. So yeah, there's a good chance. I'm looking at our experts now. 2 of them think Sam is getting in. For Katrina, 8 experts out of 20 think Katrina's getting in.
Really? Oh, that's wow.
And they aired a lot of episodes during June, while nomination ballots were out.
Mm-hmm.
If voters are passionate, when I talk to people, just when I went home for the holidays last week, women especially, that's they know I live out here. They're, have you ever met any of the Outlander people? They just love Outlander, and it boggles me. I don't know that that it really catches my attention, but it's not really aimed at me. So,
It's a show for little old ladies like me.
well, if the votes are based on passion, you're going to see some. I know that it is probably in the top 10.
Yeah.
Whether it makes the- I don't know.
As a fan of all those genre shows, like, Battlestar Galactica, and Daniel, you loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer, we get attached to these ideas that we want the Emmys to embrace our favorite shows. So I'm hoping that this is not just one of those attachment things, that actually will happen, because there's so many fans out there that'll just be over the moon.
I know.
We would love it. We would get to have more headlines and talk about it for the next few months.
And I am a fan. I am an absolute fan.
Well, I'm going to tell you, the rest of the media, I'm like Paul, I've got Feedly, which has, the combination of all the headlines of all the major entertainment sites. They weren't even covering the first, say, 3 or 4 episodes of this past season, but either because of us or because they were seeing the response. By mid-season, every one of them had a weekly recap. Some of them would do even more than that. So within the media world, they realized that this thing is really popular online, and they started covering it much heavier, probably about mid-season this season.
Right. The EW network on Sirius Satellite Radio actually has an Outlander show. All just devoted to Outlander.
And so, and to that point, I mean, Tom, you always say, voters want to be on the winning team. They want to be, yes, there's some that'll sort of go their own way, but it's sort of like you're filling out your ballot, and you want to be validated by seeing the shows you picked be nominated. And it's almost, do you self-select? Do you suddenly start picking shows like, oh yeah, that Outlander, people are talking about it, and I did see one episode, or I went to an event. I mean, again, to the marketing during nominations, I mean, they did some really wonderful events for voters, and even if the voters didn't go, they were written about, whether it be at our site or others. And again, because it's so popular online, like, does it become a self-fulfilling prophecy?
Paley Center did a wonderful Outlander event, and they did a lot of outreach to the guilds and the rest of it, and they were in such a campaign mode that I was very touched when, Chris and Marcus were witness to this. We did an Emmy party in conjunction with Deadline Hollywood, and Katrina and Sam and Ron Moore, the series runner, they all came to our Emmy party, and I thought, they were really in the campaign spirit, and I thought, that's really smart of them.
And they're so tall.
To your point about the Paley Center in Beverly Hills, banners outside of it talking about the Outlander event during nominations. Lots of those showbiz folks live in that area. I mean, they're being, and it's the Paley Center. It isn't just a billboard. It's the what used to be the old Museum of Television and Radio is endorsing it during nominations.
No, it's a fascinating wild card because it's considered bubblegum, bodice ripper, cheesy melodrama for women, and so of course the Academy tends to be largely male, but yet on the other hand, it's really good, and I understand why it's so beloved. It's an international hit. It's not just a hit here. There are these wild fans for it all over the world, and it's the passion vote, like we were been saying here. There are a lot of people who I put it in my top 10 for a series for best drama series. It's got that passion vote.
Well, regardless of those top categories, I even as a non-fan, I'm going to be really disappointed if it doesn't clean up in nominations, at least on the tech categories.
Yes,
costume.
That is a beautiful show.
Yeah.
They did 10,000 original costumes this year alone. 10,000! Just think about it. It's astounding.
Well, even things like art direction and cinematography, and I will be very disappointed. And another one that will disappoint me if it doesn't really do well, at least in a few nominations, is Underground. That's another very popular show.
Yeah, but it's not going to break through. I'm not sure that. I think it'll have better luck next year and the following year. They did a wonderful campaign event at the Beverly Hilton in the International Ballroom where the Golden Globes was held, and they had a gospel choir come in. And they did a whole meal there and the rest of it. And it was you and I went, Chris, and it was very impressive. They were imaginative that way. They got their packages, their DVD packages out. They did a lot of advertising, and I think the show is very well received critically and among audiences. Near the end of the season, which was running earlier this year, they were getting like a 1.1 million viewers, which is a lot for a new series on the WGN network. But I don't think it's broken through yet. But it is. It's a show that's extremely well crafted. In other words, it's not just a slave underground railroad kind of show like you think it is. It's going to be. It's full of wonderful plot twists and surprises and character turns at all times, and it's very, very addictive. It deserves.
And it's WGN, and I think they've got a strategy. You know, I mean, they came with Manhattan. Now they're going to do. Hopefully, I think a new series every quarter. But too underground, or you know, we were talking about, you know, Oscars so white, so Emmys so diverse. I mean, does that awareness help a show like Underground, you know, come to the forefront, or you know, performers like Viola Davis, we mentioned last year, making history as the first African American to win Drama Actress. I mean, how much, Tom, do you think TV Academy members are aware of the potential backlash? That the people like us that are sitting there on Thursday ready to write the Emmy so white articles.
I think they're conscious of it. I think that TV is more diverse in terms of colors, and so we certainly saw it last year with the first win ever by an African American for Best Drama Actress when Viola won, Regina King won, Reggie Cathay won last year, Uzo won. There was a lot of diversity among the winners, and we'll see a lot of it during the nominations too. But it is what we're looking for, especially after the Oscars were so chintzy the past couple of years to non-white people. Anyone else have thoughts on this?
I don't think it hurts. I think it'll be going through the minds, or they've already voted for nominations, but I think it probably went through their minds, especially when you've got that many slots, when you've got 10 available slots to narrow down to 7 for series and 6 for acting. If I was a voter, it would certainly be on my mind, not because I want to avoid negative press, but just because I want to be inclusive.
Drama Actress, let's wrap this discussion up with Drama Actress here. We all have the same things. You know, we know Juliana Margulies, Viola Davis, Robin Wright, Claire Danes. They all seem like guaranteed nominees. And then who gets those other slots on the bottom is a toss-up if it's Taraji P. Henson gets back in this year or not. Remember, she was the only nomination, I think, plus costumes that Empire got last year, which was surprising. But the question is it the new Dynasty in Dallas, which, remember, did not do well as a primetime soap, as Empire is, in its first outings at the Emmys, and then did very well subsequently. And then Vera Farmiga's been nominated in the past for the first season of Bates Motel. She was outstanding this year, of course.
She deserves it.
She sure does.
Yeah.
Is she in your predictions, Marcus, or not?
No, my predictions are very boring. I have, you know, the 5 that made it in last year, I have them coming back. The 6th, Elizabeth Moss, you know, Mad Men's over. So for that 6th slot, I'm just bringing back Juliana Margulies. So it's the most boring predictions ever. Even today, I took out, who did I take out? I had someone in there, and I put back in Tatiana Maslany, even though I feel like she has really no buzz. Her show is kind of quieter than it's ever been, but just, you know, the Jim Carter rule, I keep mentioning it. If you're on their list one year, there's a really, really good chance you're going to come back. So I put Tatiana
Well, watch out for the Jim Carter rule there, because we could see, and I'm thinking about doing that. I have Tatiana Maslany in my 6th spot, but we can see for the last season of Downton Abbey, Michelle Dockery come back in. If you know,
that's what I took out today.
Yeah, if the buzz for.
But she was nominated the previous 3 years, so yeah, that's a good warning.
Yeah.
I took Tatiana out. The buzz just doesn't seem to be nearly as hot, and they do occasionally have in a given category like a one-time only nominee. Even like you mentioned, Vera. I mean, she's only been up that one time. It almost feels like they gave it to her because there was such outcry that she should be an Emmy nominee, but they're going to take it back away. I've got Kerry Russell in there, but I could be talked out of it. Mainly because of the TCA. The TCA nominated her among men, you know, for that one category that they have for drama performer. So I just thought maybe it might happen.
She's certainly cool. Viola Davis is the overwhelming favorite to win, according to the experts and according to everyone else. But I think Robin Wright can win this, and Juliana Margulies can win too. Does anyone else have thoughts?
Yeah, and in fact, I would say I'm just looking at the experts right now. I think a lot of them have made some changes because it's not just straight across the board Viola Davis anymore. There are a few for Robin Wright. There's quite a few for Juliana Margulies, a couple for even Tatiana. There's always an outlier, one for Claire Danes, one for Taraji. Tom, you've been around the Emmy game for a long time. I mean, Juliana Margulies. I mean, she was the good wife. She was the show. I mean, how sentimental do Emmy voters get? I mean, John Hamm last year, his only win for the last season. Now, Juliana Margulies has won a couple of times. But do you think that there's any chance that they'll sort of want to give her the hat trick, give her the third one?
The question is, does she get nominated? She's like Taylor Holland from the old Two and a Half Men. One year she's in, one year she's not. Poor Holland.
You mean Holland Taylor, the poor thing.
Yeah. What did I say?
Taylor Holland.
Holland Taylor. Yes, I'm sorry.
He's always thinking traffic, so he's thinking Taylor Swift. That's what.
There you go.
He will tweet too. She tweeted to us once before, so she's a Gold Derby fan. I think.
Oh, she'll be there anyway.
Yeah. Well, right. Anyway.
With Sarah.
Yeah, but Juliana Margulies.
When you're not nominated, and that's kind of like what Juliana does. So I think the question is, does she get in? Does she get nominated? If she gets nominated, she has a chance to win. Yeah.
Remember, Kelsey Grammer got snubbed, I think, for the next to last season, and they came back and not only got nominated for the last, but won.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that these Emmy voters, they do have a heart, and you see that with these farewells, and with I think we just to chime in, Chris and I are both Downton fans. I think Downton is going to do well this year, at least as well as last year in terms of nominations, because of the awareness that it's the last season.
That's another one that PBS has been running, not only the last season, but they don't have much left with Downton gone, so they've been running, I don't know if it's an Emmy strategy, but they've been running episodes from all seasons the last few weeks.
Yeah. So, and then I think Robin Wright, House of Cards, it is a tennis match. Kevin Spacey is only as good as his opponent. And I think this was it was almost her season.
It was her season. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. And so I think that's somebody that, but then again, you can't, it's a popularity contest. And I think of Juliana Margulies has been proven popular. She's lots of nominations for ER, enough nominations for The Good Wife. It's going to be a tough one. I think last year we were all willing Viola Davis to win, to make history. I mean, it was shocking that it took till 2015 for a black woman to win that category. So I don't know. And she'll be the only nomination from her show. Whereas I think The Good Wife has lots of potential.
Maybe Cicely Tyson. I think she has a really good chance. But other than that, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's going to be fun, and certainly be fun to talk to everyone all of us on Thursday at some point to see where we were right and unfortunately where we were wrong.
One last thing though, let's talk about drama supporting actor on this. This is the big question. Peter Dinklage won last year for virtually no performance or not much of an impressive performance of Game of Thrones. Could have been carried in on that tide. Kit Harington ended up stealing this season. He could be nominated, right? I have him temporarily there as my winner now. I don't know why. I think it's just... And then Christian Slater is the Mr. Robot thing. So, Marcus, you're a real, and Daniel, real Game of Thrones watchers. Pipe in here on supporting actor. Does Peter Dinklage just take this automatically? Is Christian Slater as much of a factor as we think he is? What about Kit Harington? What happens here?
A week ago, I was 99% sure Kit Harington was getting in, and now a week later, I just took him out of my predictions. I don't know what to do with this guy. I think he deserves a nomination based on the season, and we've seen before Game of Thrones, they nominated Lena Headey one year, then they took her out the next year and put in Emilia Clarke. Maybe that's reversed, but they're watching the show, they're putting in who deserves the nomination. If that's the case, Kit Harington's in and Peter Dinklage is out, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think Peter Dinklage is going to be the canary in the coal mine for episode submissions at the primetime Emmys. He won last year. He submitted his best episode, and even then, it wasn't really much, and he won anyway. Against, of course, that was the year he beat Jonathan Banks, had that huge acting showcase on Better Call Saul. Couldn't win for that, so obviously the episode submissions were not a factor in that category. This year, it's the same thing. He's great on the show, but he doesn't really have an episode. He didn't really have a big storyline. So I think Dinklage gets a nomination, certainly, again, by rote. He gets SAG nominations for Best Actor against leads. So there's no way he's falling out of this category altogether. Kit Harington, maybe. I don't have him on my list, but he'd probably be in my top from 7 to 10, somewhere in there. I'm not sure they take him seriously. He does have that sort of pretty boy bias working against him. But even if he does get in, I really feel like we're gonna see just Dinklage take this. I feel like they should do, Peter Dinklage should pull in Allison Janney and just move up to lead actor, and just because they're gonna nominate you anyway. They love you. They keep nominating you. You're gonna keep winning and supporting against all these other actors who have episode submissions. So I think maybe next year they should promote him.
I think Aaron Paul should be the one that presents this category because, as we know, Aaron Paul has 3 in this category. If Dinklage wins, he'll have 3. So it'll be like a handing off the crown to the guy that matches your record.
Chris, pipe in here.
Speaking of Banks, I've got him being replaced by Michael McKean from his own show. Like you just said, they do that sometimes. Not necessarily on any given show, but on shows that they actually watch, like a Game of Thrones or a Better Call Saul. I think they do pay attention. Look at Michael Kelly coming in last year. They were watching House of Cards. They knew he had a great season. They nominated him, which is why I don't have Michael Kelly in this year. He didn't have very much to do. So on the shows that they watch, I think they do pay attention to those things. And I've got Michael McKean. If he gets in and they actually get a few voters that watch the episodes in that category, he could actually win.
But I wonder with Christian Slater, again, to the harping on the popular vote aspect of it, and the sentimentality, and it's sort of, I wouldn't say comeback, but this guy's been kicking around a long time, up and down, and winning at the Globes, and I know it just would, again, it would feel good, if they voted for him, and the Peter Dinklage thing, a bit of maybe voter fatigue, and that he did win last year, and at some point, do you just name check when you are sitting there thinking, oh, but he wasn't in it that much, or Kit Harington was better, but Kit Harington's not nominated, so you're sort of feeling like, well, I'm not going to give it to Dinklage.
And speaking of kicking around a long time, I've got Alan Alda in there. Of all the people on Horace and Pete, he's the most Emmy beloved, and they've got a lot of Emmy love in that cast. But and again, if they do watch the episodes in that category, I mean, he is way against anything he's ever done in his career. That'll be in his favor.
Okay, very good. Let's wrap up this discussion of the drama.
We didn't talk about drama supporting actress, and so I was going to.
Okay, what do you have to say about that, Paul?
Well, I was going to cut us off at the leads. I was suddenly Bill Murray when he used to predict the Oscars on Saturday Night Live and said nobody cares about supporting. But I think again, with supporting actress, I think it is going to be interesting, as Daniel was saying, about the popular versus, because I really feel, for me, Lena Headey in Game of Thrones, is the most deserving winner, but then Uzo just is this seemingly unstoppable force. So I'm curious where everyone falls on that, and who. So Daniel, who are you predicting to win? And maybe it's neither of those.
Got both Amelia and Lena in there, and so does Marcus. You first, Daniel.
Yeah, I've got Uzo winning sort of by default because of her win last year. But Orange is the New Black, as I mentioned earlier, it underperformed last year in the nominations. So how popular that show still is going to be a question mark at the Emmys. It did still win both of the SAG awards this past year, so it still has that popularity with the industry. But if Uzo will almost definitely be nominated. Even she'll probably be the last nominee for Orange is the New Black, whenever it falls out of favor at the Emmys. But if Orange is the New Black significantly underperforms and Game of Thrones continues to ascend, as I think it probably will even do, I might consider moving Lena up.
My big question, we talked about this before we went live, is Margot Martindale on The Good Wife. They love her so much that they gave her an Emmy for sitting in a coffee shop for 2 minutes on The Americans. And now she's a supporting player on The Good Wife. Does she take Christine Baranski's spot, or do they both get in? Right now I have them both. What do you guys think?
I've got both because Christine's never missed a nomination for that show. So until this morning, I had Jessica Lange and Edie Falco in there because they're, they seemingly can get in for anything. If there's a scenario that would be so much fun for next year if this happens. You could have 2 people from Good Wife, 2 people from Horace and Pete, and 2 people from Downton Abbey. And if that's the case, all 6 would not be eligible next year. That would be so much fun.
What about you, Tom? Who do you think is the strongest contender?
Uzo, you really have to go with by default, but I think Lena had just stole Game of Thrones. My God, it's so triumphant to see where it came to at the end of the season. It's hard, and literally, claiming her crown. There's a kind of rooting factor here among people for her, and even though her character is kind of stoic on the show, I could see the rooting and the cool factor really pay off for her in the same way that Dinklage has those too. So I have Lena winning now that I'm looking at my predictions here.
Villains win a lot. They love rewarding villains with trophies.
Male villains. How often do female villains win? Villainesses.
Margot Martindale.
There's one.
Jessica
How upset was Lena last year, though, sitting there in the audience going, we won every category over 2 weekends except for drama supporting actress.
Wow.
Oh,
it's
that's
time.
true. I hadn't thought of that. Wow.
So do they really like her? I mean, they were giving it to everything.
What might have happened is a vote split with Amelia there that let Uzo just kind of slip through, because literally, I mean, it won every other category it was up for at the telecast, and it was just poor Lena and Amelia. They were just like, ooh, me next, me next. No.
There was one obvious choice of the two, though. I think vote splitting happens when you can't really decide. But I mean, Lena was by far the better of the 2 choices from that one show.
Right.
Last year and this year.
All right, now we can wrap up.
Now we will wrap up. All right, we figured out nothing, but we've certainly had fun just chatting it all. Thank you.